My name is Rachel, and my own sister stole from me. Twice. I let it go. The third time, she took the cash I'd saved for my son's surgery and dared me to prove it. That's when I stopped arguing and set a trap. If you face something like this, share your story in the comments. The third envelope. The work laptop was still open on the kitchen table when I slid the drawer out and reached for the envelope. The hospital reminder sat beside my keyboard, the date circled in pen, payment required before admission. I knew exactly where the envelope should be. I also knew, the second my fingers hit bare wood, that it wasn't there. The drawer came all the way out, then the next one. My purse was dumped onto the chair, receipts and keys clattering. The small lockbox under the sink felt lighter than it should. Empty. The knock came fast, not hesitant. Amanda let herself in before I answered, like she always had. She moved straight to the counter, dropped her bag, and glanced toward the hallway. "Hey," she said, "I just need to grab some old paperwork. Dad's asking again." My mouth opened and closed once. The envelope wasn't a question yet. It was a fact pressing against my ribs. "Did you move something from the drawer?" I asked. She turned, already frowning. "What drawer?" "The one by the sink." Amanda laughed, short and dry. "Why would I touch your stuff?" I told her what was missing. Not everything, just enough. She crossed her arms. "You're really doing this now?" "It was right there this morning." Her eyes flicked toward the sink. "You mean the envelope behind the cleaning wipes?" That stopped me. "I didn't say where it was," I said. She shrugged. "You always keep it there." The phone rang before either of us spoke again. Mom. Then Dad on the other line. The words stacked up fast. "You're stressed. Amanda's had a hard year. Money between family doesn't count the same." Amanda leaned back against the counter, scrolling through her phone, bored. I asked again, straight this time. "Did you take it?" She looked up, finally annoyed. "Do you have proof?" The old security app chimed from my tablet on the table. Offline. The small icon blinked like it had been doing that all week. Another sound cut in, softer. My bank app refreshed on its own. Cash withdrawal limit unchanged. I stared at the screen, then locked it without saying anything. Amanda grabbed a folder from the cabinet, the wrong one, then put it back. "You should really calm down," she said. "This isn't healthy." A new email slid across my laptop. Same subject line as before. Pre-op billing reminder. Final notice. Dad's voice rose through the phone. Mom kept repeating my name. Amanda headed for the door, keys already in hand. "Call me when you're done spiraling." She stepped into the hall. The door clicked shut behind her. My hand smelled like cleaner and old paper. I slid down against the cabinet, the cold floor seeping through my jeans. The phone kept vibrating in my hand, numbers I knew by heart. The hospital email stayed open on the screen, cursor blinking at the payment link. Before I could stand back up, the doorbell rang again. Family handles it. My parents' house was already full when I walked in. Shoes by the door that didn't belong to me. Voices layered over each other from the living room. Someone had brought pastries, the kind meant to soften things before anyone said something uncomfortable. Amanda sat on the couch, shoulders tight, eyes red in a way that suggested effort. She looked up when she saw me and sighed, like the room had been waiting for proof of exhaustion. "There she is," Dad said. "Let's just talk." I stayed near the doorway. No one asked me to sit. Amanda started before I could speak. "She accused me of stealing," she said, voice shaky but controlled. I went over to help. I grabbed paperwork Dad asked for. "Suddenly, I'm a criminal." Mom turned to me right away. "You didn't have to come at her like that." "I asked where the money went," I said. "It disappeared." Amanda pressed her lips together. "You were panicking. I told you that night wasn't the time." Dad rubbed his forehead. "She's been helping everyone for years, you know that." Aunt Carol nodded from the armchair. "Amanda's always the responsible one." The word responsible landed wrong, but no one noticed. I said where the money had been kept, how much, what it was for. No one asked about the surgery date. No one asked why it was cash. Mom reached for Amanda's hand. She's barely keeping things together. Why would you add to that? Because it's gone, I said. Amanda shook her head. This is what stress does. You jump to conclusions. Dad leaned forward. An apology would go a long way. For what? I asked. For accusing your sister. The room settled on that. The decision had already been made. The meeting wasn't about finding the money. It was about smoothing the surface. Amanda's phone buzzed on the coffee table. The screen lit up with a name I didn't recognize and a $sign emoji next to it. She flipped the phone face down without looking. Dad waved his hand. Let's not involve outsiders. No one laughed. I almost did. The conversation kept circling. Family, intentions, timing. Amanda talked about the pressure she was under, how everyone leaned on her, how she never complained. When it was my turn again, the words felt heavier. The hospital needs payment in 10 days. Mom frowned. We'll figure that out later. Later stayed vague. Work didn't wait. The next morning, my manager answered my call with a pause that told me the answer before she spoke. We can't approve in advance right now, she said. There are flags on your account. What kind of flags? Financial instability, she said gently. It's automatic. The call ended with an apology that sounded practiced. By noon, my inbox had filled with messages from family. Advice, disappointment, requests to be reasonable. Amanda sent one text, "Please stop." I didn't reply. That evening, Elena met me at a diner near her place. She listened without interrupting, stirring her coffee until it went cold. "Walk me through it," she said. "Not the feelings, the details." So I did. Where the envelope sat, who had keys, when the security app stopped updating, the order of everything. She nodded once. "That system doesn't just go offline by itself." "You think I messed something up?" "I think timing matters," she said, "and habits." She asked how long Amanda had known my schedule, how often she stopped by unannounced, whether the lock had ever been changed. None of those questions needed long answers. Elena leaned back. "Don't argue, don't explain, just pay attention." When I got home, the tablet still showed the same status message. No update, no alert, just nothing. Another email came in from the hospital. Final reminder, 10 days. The next family meeting happened faster. Papers were already printed when I arrived. A single page slid across the table toward me. "Just sign," Dad said. It says there was a misunderstanding. Amanda wouldn't look at me. My phone vibrated again, another hospital notice stacking under the last. I picked up the pen, then stopped, rereading the heading as my parents watched, the paper waiting for ink. How it was done. The apartment felt smaller when I walked back in, not because anything had changed, but because I knew what to look for. The drawer by the sink slid out smoothly this time, like it had nothing to hide. I didn't bother checking it again. Elena's questions stayed with me as I moved through the space, not the emotional ones, the practical ones, where things plugged in, what stayed put, what didn't. The tablet sat where I'd left it, same status, offline. I followed the cord with my hand until it disappeared behind the cabinet. The plug came out with no resistance at all. That was the first thing that felt wrong. The outlet showed a fresh scrape, thin and pale against the wall. Not old wear, recent. Someone had pulled it out and pushed it back in without care. My phone buzzed on the counter, a text from Amanda. "Are you okay?" I didn't answer. Instead, I scrolled back through our messages. Not the last few days, further, weeks, months. Patterns show up when you stop skimming. There it was, 3 days before the envelope vanished. "What time are you working Tuesday? Remote or office? Just trying to plan stuff." Tuesday had been the day I worked straight through lunch, the day I didn't leave the apartment until evening. The knock hadn't been random. It had been scheduled. That settled something without settling anything else. My phone rang, Amanda again. I let it go to voicemail. She didn't leave one. The next call came 5 minutes later. When I picked up, she didn't bother with a greeting. "You're taking this too far," she said. "This is turning into something it doesn't need to be." "I'm at home," I said, "checking my outlets." A pause, then a laugh that didn't reach her words. "You're spiraling," she said, and people notice that. "What people?" "People who make decisions," she said. "You don't want attention right now." The implication landed where it was meant to. "You really want to risk custody questions over money?" she added, "because that's how it gets framed." The line went dead before I could respond. I sat the phone down carefully, like it might break something else if I wasn't deliberate. The hardware store was 5 minutes away. The clerk didn't look up when I paid. The box fit in my jacket pocket. Back home, the setup took less time than expected. No noise, no drilling, just placement and patience. One went near the drawer, another where the lockbox sat. When the app finished loading, a notification popped up. "Device ready to protect your home." I almost smiled. Nothing else in the apartment changed. The drawer stayed empty, the outlet stayed scarred, the tablet still refused to update. I didn't tell anyone. That night, a message came through from the hospital confirming the same deadline. 10 days, no extension noted. Amanda texted just after that. I realized I left a few things there. "I'll swing by tomorrow to grab them." The message sat on the screen while the app refreshed in the background. A small green dot appeared. Recording started. I set the phone down and stepped away from it, the way you do when you don't want to influence what happens next. The kitchen light buzzed softly. The lock clicked as I turned it, then unlocked it again, leaving things as familiar as possible. Another message arrived. "Don't make this weird." The green dot stayed on, the line that was crossed. The alert came through while the apartment was still. One short vibration, no sound beyond that. The app didn't dramatize it, it just logged activity. The door opened without force. Amanda stepped in like she owned the place, keys already back in her bag. She didn't look around, she didn't hesitate. Shoes off, purse on the counter, jacket draped over the chair. Her movements were practiced. She went straight to the drawer by the sink. Hands moved aside exactly what needed to be moved. The envelope came out clean, unfolded once, then slid into her coat pocket. No rush, no panic. The lockbox was next. Knees on the floor, lid open, fingers checking for anything else. Nothing. She frowned, then shrugged, standing back up. The whole thing took less than 3 minutes. When the door closed behind her, the app marked the time and saved the file automatically. No commentary, no judgment. My phone rang seconds later. "Mom, your sister just called us," she said. "She's really shaken." I didn't answer right away. "She said you set her up," Mom continued, "that you're trying to blame her for your own mess." Dad's voice came on the line. "If you've been recording people without consent, that's serious." "She stole money," I said. Dad exhaled sharply. "We don't know that. She has the envelope." "Amanda said you planted it," Mom said. "She said you're not well right now." The call ended with a warning. If this went any further, they would tell anyone who asked that Amanda had been targeted unfairly, including authorities. The next message came from Amanda herself. "You crossed a line. This could get ugly." A group text followed. Aunts, cousins, concern, advice to let things go before they escalated. The money I'd borrowed from friends sat briefly in my account, then disappeared with the same finality as before. There would be no backup, no extra cushion. That was it. Elena came over after work. She didn't ask to see the video right away. She watched my face instead. "They're all siding with her," she said. "They always do," I replied. She nodded once. "This isn't about cash anymore." The video played on my phone between us. Amanda's confidence filled the screen. The ease of it, the lack of fear. Elena didn't interrupt. When it ended, she leaned back. "That wasn't opportunistic," she said. "That was planned." I showed her the messages from my parents, the threat wrapped in concern. "She's counting on you backing down," Elena said, "and on them backing her." The realization didn't arrive as a wave. It landed quietly. The key in Amanda's hand, The spare I'd never asked back because it felt petty. Family doesn't need locks. That had been the rule. The rule worked great for her. A new email arrived while we sat there. Another hospital notice. Payment pending. No grace period mentioned. My phone buzzed again. Dad. I hope you're thinking this through, he said. If you involve anyone else, we'll tell the truth. What truth? I asked. That you've been unstable, he said. That you're under pressure. After the call, Elena stood up. You can't argue this away, she said, and you can't explain it into fairness. So what do? I asked. You document, she said, and you stop trying to win them over. She couldn't fix it. She didn't pretend to. All she did was name it. After she left, the apartment went back to being just a room with furniture. The drawer stayed open, the lockbox stayed empty. I connected the phone to my laptop and transferred the file. The progress bar filled steadily. No rush, no error. Another message from Amanda popped up while it copied. You're tearing this family apart. The transfer finished. The file appeared on the desktop, time-stamped and labeled by the system. I selected it and dragged it to an external drive. The cursor hovered as I released it. My finger rested on the trackpad, right over the option to send a copy. The phone started ringing again, my parents' number lighting up the screen, vibrating against the table as the share window waited for a destination. What I ignored. The apartment didn't feel hostile. It felt familiar in a way that made everything harder. The file sat open on my laptop, paused at the same timestamp I'd already watched twice. I didn't press play again right away. Instead, the messages came first. Years of them. Amanda asking questions that had always sounded normal on their own. Schedules, paydays, when I'd be home, when I wouldn't. Back then, it felt like concern, like coordination, like family doing what family does. The video played again anyway. Her movements stayed calm, efficient. That part didn't change no matter how many times I watched. What changed was everything around it. The spare key showed up in my memory next. Handed over years ago, no conversation attached. And it felt easier not to question it. Same with giving her my work schedule when she asked. Same with letting her know when a big payment was coming up. Same with assuming she would never use that information against me. The pattern wasn't new. It had just finally become visible. I scrolled through bank statements next, matching dates. Withdrawals lined up with messages. Short gaps. Predictable timing. Not reckless, controlled. The phone buzzed again. I didn't pick it up. I turned it face down and kept going. A hospital document sat folded on the counter, edges worn from being handled too many times. Payment required before admission. No flexibility listed. That part had been clear from the beginning. The mistake hadn't been trusting Amanda with money. It had been trusting her with access, with information, with the assumption that someone who struggled would never turn survival into entitlement. I didn't avoid conflict because I was weak. That had been the story everyone else preferred. The truth sat closer to fear. Fear of being labeled dramatic. Fear of being the one who broke things, the one who made holidays tense, the one who took something private and forced it into daylight. That fear had kept doors unlocked and questions unasked. The video ended. I closed it without watching the replay. Elena came by after work, the same way she had before, without ceremony. She didn't sit right away. She scanned the room, then leaned against the counter. You look like someone who finished counting, she said. There's more than I thought, I replied. She nodded. There usually is. The laptop screen reflected off the window behind her. Lines of text stacked neatly now, organized, dates labeled, files named. This isn't something you handle by talking louder, Elena said. You already tried that. I know. She reached into her bag and slid a card across the counter. He's dealt with this kind of thing. Family cases. It's ugly work. The name meant nothing to me. The address did. Downtown. Close enough to get to without making a day of it. You should also lock down everything, she added. Accounts, access, shared anything. That will be noticed. Yes, she said. That's the point. I picked up the card and turned it over once, then set it next to the laptop. What happens next? I asked. You stop asking permission, she said, and you accept that they won't like how this ends. The cost was already clear. My parents' support wasn't conditional. It was aligned. They had chosen a side, and it wasn't the one holding receipts. A message came through while Elena stood there. Mom again. No text this time, just the missed call. I silenced it without comment. The lawyer's office was quieter than expected. No small talk, no comforting language. The video played once, uninterrupted. He didn't ask how I felt about it. This is theft, he said, and coercion doesn't help her case. What about my parents? I asked. If they want to testify, he said, they can. The paperwork came out next. Forms, authorizations, a retainer agreement that made everything official. My phone buzzed on the desk. Another call from home. I turned it off and slid it into my bag. The pen felt heavier than it should have, but it didn't pause. The signature went down clean. When the folder closed, the sound landed like a decision instead of a conclusion. I stood up, the chair scraping softly as I pushed it back. The lawyer held the door while I adjusted the strap of my bag. The phone stayed dark as I stepped into the hall. Contract signed, file secured, walking away while the last open line to my family stayed unanswered. The lawyer didn't ease into it. He opened a file, slid a few pages across the desk, and waited until I'd read the names. They weren't mine. These payments, he said, tapping the column with his pen, came from your account, but the debts aren't yours. One page showed a credit card balance in someone else's name. Another listed a short-term loan tied to an address I recognized. A cousin, a former co-worker of Amanda's. People who had been mentioned in passing, always in the context of her helping out. She paid them off, I said. Yes, he replied, and then borrowed again. The pattern filled in quickly once it had a shape. Money moved through her hands, never staying long. She took from one place to stabilize another. Always temporary, always urgent. The amounts grew as the trust did. My savings hadn't been targeted by accident. They were the largest, most time-sensitive pool she'd ever had access to. Surgery deadlines don't wait. People under pressure don't ask many questions. That's why this escalated, the lawyer said. You were the last step, not the first. The replays made more sense after that. Amanda's questions about my schedule weren't casual. The way my parents stepped in immediately wasn't instinct. It was rehearsal. This was how things had always been handled. Quiet transfers, soft explanations, no records kept. They're used to cleaning it up, I said. He didn't argue. That afternoon, my phone buzzed with a notification from an unfamiliar number. A document had been filed. Amanda's name sat at the top. Mine followed underneath. She's accusing you of defamation and unlawful recording, the lawyer said when I forwarded it. She's trying to shift the focus. The claim read like a reversal of everything that had happened. According to the filing, I had staged the situation, manipulated footage, and invaded her privacy to cover financial mismanagement of my own. There it was, the word unstable dressed up in legal language. She wants this to look mutual, he continued. Two sisters in conflict, no clear victim. The video still mattered, but now it wasn't enough on its own. Consent laws came into play. Context would matter. Intent would matter. For the first time since this started, the ground moved under my feet. At home, the desk filled with notes instead of open arguments. Dates, times, amounts, names. Everything Amanda had touched went into a list. No anger guided it, no urgency either, just sequence. A message came in from my mother while I worked. This has gone too far. We're worried about you. I archived it. Another came from my father. If the police call, we'll tell them what we know. I added the time to my notes. Amanda didn't contact me directly again. The silence carried more weight than her threats had. She was letting the paperwork speak. Elena checked in that night. She didn't ask how I felt. She asked what had changed. "She's been doing this longer than I realized," I said, "and she's not stopping." "Are you?" she asked. The answer showed up in the way the list kept growing. The next morning, the lawyer called. "She's pushing for speed," he said. "That usually means she's nervous." "What do we do?" "We wait," he said, "and we organize." More records came in, statements, logs, small confirmations that stacked quietly, the kind that don't look dramatic until they're all in one place. My phone buzzed again, an alert from a shared account I hadn't thought about yet. Access changed. Someone else had tried to log in. I locked it down and noted the time. By the end of the day, the apartment felt less like a place to hide and more like a work surface. Everything had a position. Nothing stayed loose. The call came the following afternoon. "Law enforcement wants to speak with you," the lawyer said, "within the next 48 hours. "About what?" "Both sides," he replied. "They've received her complaint, and now they have yours." The timeline tightened without drama. No raised voices, no speeches, just a window closing. I looked at the list one more time, scrolling until the first entry disappeared at the top of the screen. Dates stretched back years. The phone rang again, this time with a number I didn't recognize. I let it vibrate on the desk while the notes stayed open, the cursor blinking at the end of the last line, waiting for whatever came next. Put it on the table. The conference room wasn't large, which worked in my favor. No space to perform, no audience beyond the people who needed to be there. The officer sat closest to the door, not taking notes yet. My lawyer placed his folder on the table and left it closed. Amanda arrived last and chose the chair directly across from me. She didn't look surprised. She looked annoyed. "We can get this over with quickly," she said. "This is all a misunderstanding." The officer nodded once. "We'll start with what was submitted." My lawyer opened the folder and slid a device across the table. "This was recorded in Rachel's residence," he said, on the date in question. Amanda leaned back. "That video was edited," she said. "She staged it." The screen played without comment. Amanda entering, the drawer opening, the envelope disappearing into her pocket, time and date stamped in the corner. "That's not what it looks like," she said. "You can't see where that money came from." The officer glanced at her. "Go on." "It was family money," Amanda said. "There was no label, no agreement." My lawyer nodded as if she'd made a reasonable point. "Correct," he said, "and that's why we included the rest." He passed over printed logs, access times, entry records, a text message thread enlarged and highlighted. "Here's the message where Amanda asked Rachel for her work schedule," he said. "And here's the timestamp showing entry less than 15 minutes after Rachel logged into her shift." Amanda shook her head. "You're connecting things that don't connect." Another page slid forward. "This shows the outlet being disconnected shortly before entry," my lawyer said, followed by reconnection. "That proves nothing," she said. The officer finally picked up his pen. My lawyer turned one more page. "This is the message sent after the funds were taken," he said, where Amanda warned Rachel not to make this weird. Amanda opened her mouth, then closed it. "That was taken out of context," she said. "She was accusing me." "Of theft," the officer said. Amanda leaned forward now. "You can't steal from family," she said. "We share things." The officer didn't respond. My lawyer spoke again. "These payments," he said, tapping a column, "were made to accounts not belonging to Rachel." Amanda's foot tapped under the table. "She offered to help," she said. "She knew what she was doing." "No," my lawyer replied. "She knew what the deadline was." The officer raised a hand. "Let's slow down." Amanda turned to him. "She's unstable," she said. "She's under pressure. You know how these things go." He looked back at the screen. The system chimed softly. Recording saved successfully. No one commented on it. Amanda laughed once, sharp and misplaced. "You're really letting a computer decide this?" The officer met her eyes. "No," he said, "but it helps." Her story shifted after that. First, the money had been shared. Then it had been borrowed. Then it had been a misunderstanding. Each version contradicted the last. "So you had permission?" the officer asked. "Yes," she said. "No," she corrected. "It wasn't needed." My lawyer closed the folder. "That's all," he said. The officer stood. "Amanda Moore, we need to continue this downtown." She looked at me then, really looked, like she expected something, an apology, a retreat. None came. "This is ridiculous," she said. "You're choosing her over family." The officer opened the door. "We're choosing the evidence," he said. Amanda stood slowly, hands clenched at her sides. "You're making a mistake," she said, to no one in particular. The hallway was short. The door closed behind her with a final sound that didn't echo. Independent account. The paperwork moved faster once everything was out in the open. Charges filed, dates set, language that didn't soften anything. Amanda's name appeared in places it hadn't before, attached to words that couldn't be argued into something gentler. No one suggested handling it privately anymore. The calls started anyway. Mom reached me first. "We need to talk," she said. "This has gone far enough." I listened without sitting down. "She's your sister," she continued. "Mistakes were made, but this doesn't have to destroy the family." "It already did," I said. There was a pause. Not shock, calculation. "If you withdraw," Dad said when he joined the call, "we can still fix things." "Fix what?" I asked. "So we can see each other," Mom said. "So holidays don't turn into court dates." "I'm not angry," I said, "but I'm not changing anything." They didn't argue after that. They shifted. Amanda's situation came up next. How scared she was. How this would follow her. How everyone would know. "I don't wish her harm," I said, "but I'm done protecting her." The line went quiet. Then Dad spoke again. "If you keep going," he said, "we can't stand with you." "I know," I said. That was the end of it. The bank visit took less than an hour. A new account, new numbers, no shared access. The teller didn't ask why. She just followed the steps and slid the paperwork across the counter. "Would you like alerts?" she asked. "All of them," I said. Credit monitoring followed. Address updates. Mail forwarding canceled. Each change closed a door that had never been locked before. An email arrived while I was still there. Subject: "Your account is now independent." I read it once, then archived it. Elena met me outside the building. "You okay?" she asked. "Yes," I said, and no. She nodded. That tracks. Amanda didn't contact me. The messages from extended family slowed to a trickle. A few tried to negotiate. Most stayed silent. The hospital confirmed payment 2 days later. Admission scheduled. No complications noted. At home, the apartment felt lighter, not happier, clearer. The drawer stayed empty, and that was fine. My phone buzzed while I was sorting paperwork for the hospital. A number I recognized without looking. Amanda. I let it ring until it stopped. A voicemail notification followed. I didn't open it. Mom tried again later that night. "You don't have to cut us off completely," she said. "We can still talk." "I'm not cutting anyone off," I replied. "I'm setting limits." "What does that mean?" "It means no money," I said, "no access, no favors." She didn't respond right away. "And no defending what happened," I added. "That's part of it." The call ended politely. That felt new. The next morning, I deleted Amanda's contact. The screen asked for confirmation. I tapped yes and turned the phone face down on the table. The hospital forms waited where I'd left them. Insurance approvals, pre-op instructions, everything in order. A knock came from the neighbor downstairs returning a package that had been misdelivered earlier in the week. We exchanged thanks, nothing more. Back at the table, the phone stayed where it was, dark and still. The paperwork shifted into a neat stack. I checked the calendar once more. Surgery date confirmed, transportation arranged, time off approved. No one interrupted. The last email of the day came in as I was filing the final document. Independent account confirmed. I closed the laptop, stacked the papers, and set them by the door, ready for the morning.